Hello everyone and welcome to What is New on ES8 by Eduonix. My name is Victor Lima and I am a computer scientist and web developer, and in this lesson you will learn the new features that came in ES8, the last JavaScript specification. Basically, in ES8 came 4 new main features: string padding, exponential operator, object values and entries, and async await. In this video, you will learn how to use them. So, let's get started with string padding. The string padding is a feature that adds spaces in the end and in the start of a string, right? So, let's see a practical example of this feature now. First, I will create a variable which I will call of my string, which I will pass Victor, right? And basically, in this feature came 2 new functions: pad start to add spaces in the beginning of the string, and pad end to add spaces in the end of the string. First, let's see the pad start, right? So let's go. To use string padding is really simple. You just need to call your string dot pad start or pad end in this way. In this case, pad start, right? And here you should pass the number of spaces that you want to pass here, that you want to put in the beginning of your string. In this case, I want to put 10 spaces, right? And this method here will return for us a new string with these spaces, right? So let's see what happens now. And as you can see, we have here a string with 10 spaces. These spaces are not white spaces, right? Are special spaces of JavaScript. So JavaScript put these spaces here in the beginning of our string, right? Well, we have too the method pad end to put spaces in the end of the string, right at the end. So I will call my string dot pad end, right? And this method here works in the same way of this method here. You just need to pass the amount of space that you want to add to your string. In this case, 20, right? And let's see what happens. I will make a console.log here. And I will reload. And the function puts 20 spaces at the end of my string. In this way, we can't see because the console here. But in fact, this function here, this method here, adds 20 spaces at the end of my string, right? Well, another thing that you can do with this method is put a string to fill all this space, right? So if you want, you can pass a second parameter here. In this case, it is a string, and inside this parameter you can put any string or a single one character, right? In this case, I will put 0. And as you can see, JavaScript fill all my spaces with this character, this string, right? And you can make the same thing here in the pad start, in this way, right? As you can see here. So this feature here is a cool feature that comes in ES8. Now let's see how to work with the exponential operator. That is the exponential operator that is useful to make power operations, right? So it's really easy to use this exponential operator, right? Is really similar to use a times operator, right? So how to use exponential operator? First, I will make a console.log to show the result. And to use the exponential operator is really simple. You just need to put a number, and the operator itself is this symbol here, right? 2 times. One symbol is the times operator, and 2 symbols is the exponential operator, right? Power operator. In this case, we make here 3 power of 2, right? Let's see what happens now. As you can see, we have 9, because this operation here is the same thing of 3 multiplied by 3. If I put another 3 here, we got 27, right? It's the same thing of this expression here, right? So it is the power operation. It is the exponential operator. Now it's time how to learn 2 new features that came in ES8: object values and object entries. Let's go. Object values and object entries, in this case, are 2 features, right? And these features show for us values of an object, values and properties of an object in an array format, right? So let's see a practical example of these 2 features now, right? So let's get started. Right. First, I will create a JSON object, right? So I will create a person object. Inside this object, I will create a property called name, another property called age, and another property called favorite color, right? And now let's see the first feature. But let me comment it. Let's see the first feature: object values. To work with this feature is really simple. You just need to call the object, which is a global object of JavaScript that you can access in any part of your script. And this object has different methods, has a lot of methods to help us to work with objects in JavaScript. This object here has a method called values. This method here will return for us an array with all the values of my object. But first, you need to pass a parameter here, right? Which is the object that you want to see the values. In this case, I want to see the values of my person object, right? Now I will create a variable because this method here return for us an array. So I will create a variable called array of values. And now I will make a console.log array of values. Let's see what happens now. And as you can see here, we got an array. And we have here first John Doe, which is the value of my name property. We have here this number, which is the value of my age property. And we have here red, which is the value of my favorite color property. And as you can see here, this method values return for us all the values of my object in a format of array, right? So let's see. I will put here a new property, in this case another, right? And let's see what happens. As you can see here, we have foo, which is the value of my another property, right? Simple in this way. And every time that you want to see all the values of an object, you can work with this values method, right? Now let's see our second feature, which is the entries. The entries is a more robust feature because this feature show for us the value of each property as the first feature, but this second feature show for us too the name of each property, right? So in this case, this feature return for us property and value, right? Return for us two informations. So let's see a practical example of this feature now. First, I will create a variable because this feature, as the first feature here, return an array too, right? An array as well. And I will call it of array of entries. And to use this feature, you need to call the object, right, dot entries in this way. And you need to pass as parameter which object you want to see what is inside. Well, so basically this method here return for us what is inside my object, right, in an organized way, right? So I will pass here person, right? And after that, I will make a console.log array of entries. Nice. Now let's see what happens. And as you can see, this method here return for us a multi-dimensional array. And inside each array, you have a key value partner, right? So you have the key name value John Doe as here on our object. Key name value John Doe. In this case, is a property value partner, right? So here I have my property first. After that, I have the value of my property, John Doe. So in each array, I have this partner. Here, my age property, value, favorite color property, value head. Another property, value, right? So it is really, really simple. It is an amazing feature because with this feature you can see what is inside an object. Now let's see how to work with one of the main features that came in ES8, Async and Await. Nice. So let's go. Async and Await. Async and Await is a new way to work with promises and async programming in JavaScript, right? So here I have this example, right? A simple promise, a very simple promise. To understand how to work with async and await, you need to understand first how to work with promises, right? And here I have my promise with a resolve and a reject, a basic promise. And here I execute my promise in this block of code here. So let's execute this code here to see what happens. So as you can see here, I have this message, hey, congrats, your promise was resolved. And this my promise here, this promise is controlled by this variable here. So if I change this variable to false, my promise will be rejected, as you can see here, right? So it is a basic promise. Well, so it is the block that we execute the promise. And this code here seems like a messy code. This code here isn't very clear, right? It is the famous async code in JavaScript. And to help us to create a much more clean code in JavaScript when we handle with async programming comes the new feature, Async and Await. With Async and Await, you can create async functions that work with promises. You will understand better now. Okay, so here I will create a function. I will call it a first, and I want to this function handle promises. I want to create a async function. So here I will put async, the keyword async in the front of the function, right? And inside the function, I can handle promises in this way. If I want to handle my first promise here, which is this thing here, I just call my first promise and I put await here in the front, await in this way. And if I want, I can create a variable result or return or promise return, right? And here I can make a console.log promise return. And for now, I will comment this block of code here, right? And this is my async function. Async functions can handle promises in this way as variables. So as you can see here, this promise here seems like a variable, right? You just need to put await in the front of this promise. So now let's see the effect. First, you need to remember to call your function, right? So I will call my function here first, and now let's see what happens. And as you can see, we got, hey, congrats, your promise was resolved. But how? Well, simple. This function here executed our promise, right? So this code here is equivalent to this code here. Well, a lot more clear, isn't? So async and await allow us to create a much more clean code when we work with promises in JavaScript, right? So it's really, really cool. Nice. Now, let's see what happens when I change my return here inside my resolve. I change to some data. Let's see what happens here. As you can see, I have some data. Because when you put await here and your promise was resolved, automatically JavaScript returns the data that you pass here in resolve to this variable that you create here. So it's really, really amazing, right? Now let's see what happens when our promise is rejected. So here in concluded, I will change it to false. When I change this variable to false, I go into this else statement and I reject my promise, passing this data here. So I will change this data here to arrow 10 testing in this way. Now let's see what happens when our promise is rejected in async function. So I will reload it, and as you can see, we got an error here, but we got our message, arrow 10 testing. But we still got an error here, and it isn't good, right? It isn't very good. And to fix this thing, to handle errors in promises when you work with await and async, is really simple. You just need to use this structure here, try, catch. Catch receives a parameter, which is the data, right? Or you can name it of arrow, right? And now inside try, you can put this code here. And inside catch, you can make a console.log error happens and console.log error. So how this structure works is really simple. First, JavaScript will try to execute this block of code here. If some failure happens, JavaScript executes this catch block here and execute what is inside this catch block, right? So it is a way to handle errors when you work with async and await. Now let's see what happens. And now, as you can see, we still in this way not getting an error, right? We're getting data here. So as you can see here, our block of code inside catch is executed, right? Error happens, arrow 10 testing. If I change this data, this return data of my reject to some kind of error in this way, when I reload my code, as you can see, I have some kind of error here, right? So it's really simple. Now let's see what happens if I make my promise resolve. I will put true here in my concluded variable, and let's see what happens. As you can see, we get some data, because when JavaScript try and this try is successful, this code is executed and JavaScript ignores the error, because an error doesn't happen, right? So it's really simple to work with async and await in JavaScript. Well, you just need to use await inside async functions, right? If I remove async here, my code is not working, right? Will not work. If I want to use this structure here, this clean structure here, I need to make a async function, right? And you can't use await, this keyword await, outside of an async function, right? And that's it. So that's it. I hope you enjoy. And if you want more videos on JavaScript and ES8, please let me know in the comment sections below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Bye bye.